You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us.
Life and mysteries go hand in hand, whether they're fiction, conspiracies, or fact. Some mysteries are resolved. Some elude us for as long as we can remember. In this instance, one mystery has no end. It has plagued locals and scared children all their lives. Who put Bella in the Wych Elm? Graffiti began appearing in the local area, giving life to the question and attaching a potential name to the victim. With the mystery hot once again, Peter Douglas Osborne is as intent as ever in finding out what happened.
The story starts on April the 18th, 1943, when four lads who've been certainly egg collecting, but possibly poaching as well in Hagley Woods, come across a large wych elm which encloses what seems to be something interesting with a skull on top of it, and turns out to be the body and bones of a woman of between 30 and 40 years of age. They then go home and decide that it's possibly as well not to admit where they've been to, but the youngest of the boys tells his father that they found these bones in the tree. Consequently, he rings straight away the local police station, which is Stourbridge, and warns them that they seem to have found something suspicious in Hagley Woods. Now, that means that the police are alerted. They ring up the nearest person that they can contact, who is in fact halfway up Hagley Hill. He is my father, Squadron Leader William Eric Douglas Osborne. Yes, he, while I was at school on Wychbury Hill, took me walking one day in Hagley Woods, which is virtually next to it, and takes me past a tree which I remember being very large and very dark, black even, probably as a result of being struck by lightning. But he informs me and lifts me up to show me what he says is where the spy was put. Joseph Jacobs was a German spy who was parachuted into Cambridgeshire. He broke an ankle on landing and was subsequently apprehended by the local Home Guard. Unfortunately, they told everybody about it, so whatever secrecy there could have been in the capture ceased to be of any use. However, in Mr. Jacobs's pocket was a picture of his girlfriend, Clarabella Boiler. So she, if we are to understand Luftwaffe intelligence instruments, would have been a perfect use in that case. The simplest theory out there, Birmingham police were contacted by a prostitute working on the Hagley Road who said that she had a friend who had disappeared about that time. Now this is obviously between 1 and 2 years later, and to say that it was a prostitute does clear up the problem and make the police able to finish the case and put it to bed.
Debated time and time again, the investigation into this case is ongoing. After 75 years, we're no closer to understanding what happened, but perhaps the people who have enveloped themselves in this exploration can shed more light on these very theories, as we try to tie the threads and follow the loose ends. Amongst these people is Joyce Coley, a local historian and rumoured white witch who has paid great attention to this case.
When I retired, I wanted to do something, and I'd always felt I'd like to write. I'd done little bits about the school and that sort of thing, but I went to a class in Birmingham, Faircombe. They do a lot for the elderly in Birmingham, and had a very good leader, and she said, "I'd like you to write an article for our magazine." I said, "What about?" I can't think of anything. So she said, "There was a murder in your village in the war. Could you look it up and write something on it?" So that's how it started. I looked it up in the Black Country Bugle, the details of the 5 boys who found the skeleton. It seemed rather silly that they had a court case to find out how she died and all the rest of it. And somebody had to stay at the tree all night. And of course, the 2 policemen involved with the case I knew, so I was really interested. I was very sorry for the boys who found her, because I don't think anybody listened to them, because they were Black Country boys. And Webster took over, and Webster was a very famous man. Professor Webster had the skeleton, and it went to be looked at and tested, and bits of clothing and all sorts of things. There was a policeman who was doing the history of the police force. He wasn't particularly interested in Bella, but he's the man who told me that the row outside the Littleton Arms, there was this woman and this Dutchman having a row, and the man in the car, the friend who came from Clatterley, was told to drive her somewhere, that they were rowing in Dutch, so he didn't know what they said. But as he put her into the car, her head fell forward, and he had to help to carry her into the tree. Now, we got a lot of sympathisers with the Germans. We got a lot of factories who'd worked with the Germans before the war and would have sort of let them in if they'd come to the door, you know, around here. So it probably did have a lot of spies here. I don't know. But there was a famous lady who knew a lot about magic. She's very famous. She lived to be 100. She was a scientist as well. So somebody at Hagley said, well, let's ask her about the Hagley murder then. Now this was well after, and Webster had said the likely time of year when she'd been murdered, because of the growth coming through the tree, a new growth of flowers and things, he could tell how long the bones had been there. And it had probably been in the springtime of 1941. And so they asked her, and she said, well, there was a festival, a sort of magic type of festival then. That's the sort of place. They might have put somebody in a tree. The thing was, they found the right hand bones, or thought they did. The right hand nowhere near the skeleton. Had somebody cut the right hand off to use it, because you could use it to make a spell on somebody, you know. I haven't got one, it's all right. But that was one of their stories. And she said, but she couldn't say that it was anything to do with magic, but it could have been this festival and that thing and cutting the right hand. Could have been. My grandmother once put a curse on somebody and he died. My mother's mother. But I haven't got the power.
The witch theory is interesting in that an anthropologist in 1945 advances the theory that this was a ritual killing. Witchcraft is again an explanation which none of us have any proof to say that we cannot believe it. It is a possibility, but only for what you might call an irrational analysis. Therefore, in my mind, the original theory that my father put to be, that this is where he guarded the remains of Bella, come out as being the most likely. We've sort of come full circle from what was effectively a spy to a prostitute to a witch murder, back again to a spy as being the most likely, I think, theory that seems to fit.
A Nazi, a witch, a prostitute, or something else? Is it just an unfortunate event, or is there more to this than we can ever begin to realize? So many questions, so few answers. Everyone seems to have a theory. These 7 words bring to life an abundance of views. Who put Bella in the Wych Elm?